Good morning, everyone. This is Dan Doolin from Integrity Data. We're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar today. Today our webinar is going to discuss the need for more flexibility to manage leave in Dynamics GP. And this webinar is really set up as a comparison between PTO Manager functionality that is available in Dynamics GP, as well as, and comparing that to our Integrity Data's comprehensive leave manager solution. There's a lot of similarities between those two products, and there's also some key differences. So I'm going to walk through those. We're going to go through some PowerPoints and as well as a demonstration. I don't anticipate taking the full hour today, so you get some time back. But certainly we're going to walk through these and answer any questions towards the end of the webinar. I'm sure there's going to be some others joining, but let's go ahead and get started. Just a quick agenda. We're just going to review quickly about Integrity Data. We're going to talk about what the accrual options are for leave time in Dynamics GP, just a quick review on that. Then we're going to talk about PTO Manager specifically. What are its strengths? What are its weaknesses? And then also do the same thing for Comprehensive Leave Manager. And then talk about what some of those key differences are and what's important if you're looking at the two from a customer perspective, or if you're a partner watching the webinar, what are those key things to look for to help you decide which would be the best solution for your customer. We're going to go through a quick demonstration of both products, and then do a few other miscellaneous things there at the end, and of course have time for questions. Just a real quick overview about Integrity Data. If you're not familiar with us, we've been around for a while, specifically since 1996. We've been providing enhancement solutions to Dynamics GP customers since late in the year 2000. That first product that we had out there was, I guess you could call it the predecessor to PTO Manager. It had a different name at the time, but it was that same product and much less functionality. But that's where we started delivering those enhancement solutions into the payroll and human resources space. In addition to the products, throughout the years we've provided development as well as consulting services related to, most of the time related to payroll and human resources. We've done some SharePoint consulting related to our ULink product line, as well as some other development projects that were outside of the payroll arena. We're the original authors of what is called the Core Payroll Extensions. Those are 3 features that are in the Core Payroll product now through our OEM license agreement with Microsoft. Those are the Overtime Rate Manager for calculating blended overtime rates, deductions and arrears, and the Payroll Integration to Payables. Those are available to all payroll customers that are using Dynamics GP Payroll. And so sometimes they don't know those are there, so we want to make sure that they're aware of those. The HR Extended Pack, as it's called in Dynamics GP 2013 and 2015, includes 4 key components. PTO Manager, of course, which is a topic of today, the Advanced Payroll piece, Advanced Human Resources, and the Benefit Self-Service for online benefit enrollment. So just a little note about Benefit Self-Service. That has been essentially rewritten for GP 2015, so beyond the business portal days. So that is still available and has been rewritten for GP 2015 for use as in a web client self-service environment. So if you're starting to upgrade the GP 2015, or you have a customer that's upgrading the GP 2015, or a new prospect looking at Dynamics GP, those features are still available. All right, let's get into our topic of the day, talking about more flexibility, more capabilities for accruing leave in Dynamics GP. As you know, there's really 4 ways to accrue time in Dynamics GP, or 4 pieces of functionality. The simplest being the payroll accruals, which exists in payroll. It's a very simple piece. It's either a set amount per pay period, or a prorated amount over the course of the year. That's on the employee card on the vacation and sick tab. Again, very limited functionality. There's HR attendance, which does provide some good functionality, more accruals, calculate based on years worked, some maximum capabilities. So that serves a lot of customers pretty well. The PTO Manager, as I mentioned, was a product that we came out with at the end of 2000 or early 2001, much more limited than what it is today, but it provided that capability for some more robust accruals, much easier to use than the HR attendance. That was the feedback that we got from customers. And there's been some features added to that lately since the OEM that happened in 2007. So we're going to take a look at some of those. It really is still a great product. It's a more limited scope than what we see in Comprehensive Leave Manager, and that's going to kind of be the theme of the webinar. The Comprehensive Leave Manager, of course, is a product available from Integrity Data, and we're going to talk about its features and its shortcomings as well as we go through the presentation. So our focus today is going to be on PTO Manager and Comprehensive Leave Manager. All right, rolling right along here. The PTO Manager, the key benefits of PTO Manager are, number one, it's included with the HR Payroll Extended Pack, which is available from Microsoft, and the PTO Manager is supported by Microsoft, as I mentioned, as part of that OEM license agreement. It is very easy to use. Customers have always liked the fact that it's an enhancement to payroll, so they don't have to have HR implemented to use PTO Manager. And it handles intermediate accruals, which is a term I put on it, just more complex than what you can use some of the other accrual options for. Not as complex as what Comprehensive Leave Manager will do, but it does handle a lot of scenarios. So there's a lot of Dynamics GP customers out there that can do their accruals, leave accruals for vacation and sick time with PTO Manager, enforce the rules and maximums that they need to enforce. It'll do some very basic lump sum calculations for accruals, but it meets a lot of needs. The other nice feature with PTO Manager, a benefit, is that you can set up a PTO code and then have the vacation and sick rules assigned to that. So you can have a PTO code called full-time, and it knows what the rules are for both vacation and sick time under that. It does support common waiting period rules or probationary periods. An example being the employee can begin accruing time, but they need to wait 90 days until that time becomes available as a probationary period. It'll support that. Has the maximum balance option, so if the employee cannot exceed 200 hours of vacation time, it'll of course enforce that. Supports carryover limits or use it or lose it policies. We see that all the time where employees can only carry over 120 hours from one year to the next, and it'll automatically cut that off. And PTO Manager supports that. In the last couple of versions, we've added some great features: the balance transaction history or detail, being able to see that balance history and what's impacted the balance, and then also some adjustment transactions. So off-cycle adjustments, traditionally in PTO Manager, those were done just by editing the balance field, which is still stored on the employee card in Dynamics GP. Now there's an adjustment window so that you've got that audit history of why that balance changed by a specific amount. Some shortcomings of PTO Manager. The big one is that it's limited to vacation and sick tracking only. So you can still only track those vacation and sick time balances. What we see a lot of is personal time. Now we've got some new paid sick leave requirements coming into effect at the state and local level. And so there's personal time, jury duty, bereavement time, maybe multiple types of vacation time. A lot of those need to be tracked depending on the organization, so that's sometimes a shortcoming with PTO Manager. It only calculates during payroll processing. So calculating like annual allotments of time, if it's just done once a year, or a monthly allotment of time, is difficult to do with PTO Manager. Accruals based on hours worked only. So you can do you can sort of fake it into doing a lump sum transaction. So a lump sum transaction would be this employee gets 3 hours of vacation time every pay period no matter what. And so you can trick it in. It's still going to do an accrual, but you set the calculation method and the maximum to the same amount. So as long as that employee works in that pay period and going through payroll, they're going to get that 3-hour allotment. So some limited capabilities there, but it can still handle some of those simple lump sum calculations. Limited transaction types on that transaction entry for adjustments. So we'll see the difference on that when we look at Comprehensive Leave Manager, but just some basic entries there. Limited maximum and carryover capabilities. Again, it does have some capabilities, but there are limits to what it can do. And what we get into here is really how to best determine the fit for your situation or for your customer's situation. What you'll start to see, what we've done with PTO Manager is really it's really become a light version of Comprehensive Leave Manager. And so when you're evaluating, it's really a matter of determining what does the customer, as always, what does the customer need, and then what's the best fit. And this webinar will help guide you into making that best determination. So they're both going to have their place, but it's going to depend on customer need. There's really no self-service capabilities with PTO Manager. What's nice is that the time does appear on the vacation and sick card for the employee. So inherently, there's some reports and things like that are available in Dynamics GP that show up there. And in with the business portal, it would, since PTO Manager is writing back to that employee card, those balances would appear within business portal. I'm not sure on what the self-service environment in GP 2015 if those balances are appearing there or not. If you have questions, go ahead and if you want to jot them down while you're thinking about it, go ahead and put it in the question box. I probably won't see it right away, but we'll definitely get those in there so that we can answer those. If not now, then later in the webinar. All right, moving on to Comprehensive Leave Manager, some of the key features. The biggest one being the unlimited user-defined leave codes. So in addition to just vacation and sick, you can identify an unlimited number of codes. So multiple types of vacation time, multiple types of sick time, personal time, PTO, bereavement. Believe it or not, we have one customer that's using Comprehensive Leave Manager to keep track of a clothing allowance, which was kind of funny to do, but it worked and did exactly what they wanted it to do. The different accrual types are the accrual type, similar to what PTO Manager can do, lump sum calculations, more robust capabilities there, and comp time leave codes for public sector customers. So when they're working overtime, they can automatically convert that to compensatory time and track that. Another key feature is that you can accrue with or without payroll processing by leave code. So some leave codes are done during payroll processing. Other leave codes are done at some other time, and those are handled completely outside of payroll. So you might do PTO time and some other leave codes during payroll, but something that's just done annually, such as personal time, could be done completely outside of payroll processing. Multiple accrual rules to support mandated sick time, mandated paid sick time, and other complex accruals. These are some features that we've just added to Comprehensive Leave Manager, and it really expands the capabilities of some of the accruals that can be done with it, and I'll show you a couple examples of that. Comprehensive Leave Manager has mass assignment and quick assignment tools. So two scenarios for that would be if you set up a new leave code or you're implementing Comprehensive Leave Manager, you can quickly assign that new leave code to large groups of employees all in one shot. The quick assignment is sort of the reverse, where you have a new employee and you want to quickly get the appropriate leave codes assigned to that new employee. You can do that simply by checking some boxes. Comprehensive Leave Manager also has a full transaction history, which shows, again, every transaction that impacts that employee balance. Because, and the reason for that, and the reason that it was added to PTO Manager as well, is that that's a huge benefit to that person who has to answer those questions from employees that inevitably come up when they say, well, why do I only have 24 hours of vacation time left? Those payroll folks need to be able to answer that question. And so being able to show and print that detailed transaction history to the employee, number one, is much faster for that payroll person to produce. And number two, gives the employee a lot of confidence that that's all being tracked, that they have an answer. If there's not confidence in the way that it's done, then that's going to generate more questions. So what typically happens is that when the employee sees, oh, there's a report that shows everything and everything's tracked, they're probably going to think about it a little bit more before they come in and ask the question, with the thought in the back of their head that their balance is incorrect. When they know that that detailed transaction history exists, they're less likely to ask those questions with that thought of it's not correct. Okay. So full transaction history, multiple types of leave transactions and adjustments, payouts, transfers to other employees, zeroing out the balance, things like that that can impact that employee balance. And so what you get in there is that capability to handle a sick bank, a leave transfer to the other employee, donate capabilities. Those are all really the same thing, just called named differently within different organizations. More and more we see the employer offering the capability to sort of join the program or the sick bank where you donate 8 hours per year, and then if somebody that's in that group gets into a really bad situation where they need extra time off, if they're if they've been badly injured or really sick, or if they have a family member that's in really bad shape, then the program enables them to take paid time off without going on disability or taking unpaid time or doing something like that. So it's really just a community sharing type of program, and we see more and more organizations doing that. It used to really just be public sector. Now we see that pretty pervasive in the private sector as well. Another key feature of Comprehensive Leave Manager is it provides the capability to track intermittent FMLA instances. So an intermittent FMLA instance is typically when an employee is taking FMLA time in short bursts. So instead of it being the usual thought of, well, the employee is going to be on FMLA for 3 months, that's easy to track in HR. It's one instance, it's a block of time, and go from there. What we see a lot of is in larger organizations, an employee taking a half a day or a couple of days, and that's harder for the HR folks to keep track of. And so what this feature does in Comprehensive Leave Manager is lets the employee identify that they're on FMLA through the use of a special pay code. Comprehensive. It's important for me to keep the product straight so that the webinar is clear to you on which one I'm talking about. Comprehensive Leave Manager will recognize that code and can also reduce employees' sick time balance, but also create an FMLA instance in Dynamics GP Human Resources for that short period of time, whether it's 4 hours, 8 hours, 16 hours. So everything is kept up to date. It's much easier for the HR folks in those situations. Comprehensive Leave Manager also has self-service views. In Business Portal, there's a pretty extensive view of the employee balance, employee transaction history, the manager view for his or her direct reports. As we transition to GP 2015 and new self-service models, we've got some of those capabilities available. There's more down the road as we get further into the 2015 release cycle. Some of the shortcomings of Comprehensive Leave Manager. One of the things I've picked up on and just by working with customers and looking at different plans, is that it doesn't necessarily enforce a maximum use rule, which would be the employee's only allowed to take X number of hours from this leave code in this time frame. There are ways to watch for that and ways to report on that, typically using something like a smart list. But that's something we've identified that is in our list of potential future updates to the product. The other thing, it doesn't have a plan, insert air quotes, plan equivalent, like the PTO code in PTO Manager. So as I mentioned, in PTO Manager, you can have this code called full-time, and it would have this vacation and sick rules. In Comprehensive Leave Manager, we have all the different leave codes, but there's no really roll-up to a group of, if an employee's in this group, or maybe even employee class, that here's all the codes that would be relevant to them. You can assign by class, but there's no real roll-up to assign the employee to one, let's say, leave plan and have it assign multiple codes. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. These aren't big things that have come up, but things that are features that don't exist. Leave requests we're a little short on at the moment. In releases up to GP 2015, so 2013 and prior, which is what most customers are still on, we added the capability to Business Portal functionality for employees to request time off for their Comprehensive Leave Manager leave codes from Business Portal. With the transition to a web client self-service model, Dynamics GP isn't offering that capability for HR attendants, for employees to make those time off requests yet. So Comprehensive Leave Manager is in the same boat as far as not offering that capability. That's something that we do have planned for future release sometime this year. So some of it depends on what requests we get. If that ends up being a big deal, we escalate that on our priority list. Also depends on, obviously how many customers are upgrading to GP 2015 as well. All right. Now let's look at some of the key differentiating benefits, as I've called them, or key areas where, and you can probably already pick up on some of these just as we've gone through the key benefits and features and shortcomings of each component. But this is where we sort of get into how do we decide which one to use as a customer, or which one to point your customer towards based on their needs and requirements. Certainly the number of leave plan, and this is guided towards Comprehensive Leave Manager. So number of leave plans supported is the first one that comes to mind. If you need to track 3 balances for an employee or more, then you're going to automatically be, should lean towards Comprehensive Leave Manager. If you just need to track vacation, or if you've just got a single PTO code that covers both vacation and sick time, then you could start looking at PTO Manager until you get into some of the other maximums and some of the other complexities that might come up. But that's sort of the first one that we look at as far as, all right, which road should we start down here? Certainly Comprehensive Leave Manager supporting an unlimited number of codes is going to provide an advantage in that scenario. The additional lump sum and comp time leave types. So certainly if one of those additional leave balances would be compensatory time, certainly lean towards Comprehensive Leave Manager. Depending on the accrual calculations that need to happen, that's also going to steer you towards PTO Manager or Comprehensive Leave Manager. If they have an additional lump sum requirement, certainly if you're getting into any of the paid sick time requirements, which I know there's a few folks on the webinar from California, then certainly that's going to be more easily managed in Comprehensive Leave Manager. The options for when sick or for when time is calculated, if you need to calculate it outside of payroll or the payroll processing, then certainly Comprehensive Leave Manager is going to provide some additional capabilities there. Okay, if it's GP 2013 and prior, a comprehensive leave manager provides an advantage on the benefit business portal self-service suite with time off requests and having that capability. PTO Manager does not necessarily have that capability. Intermittent FMLA support, of course, leans towards is a differentiating benefit of Comprehensive Leave Manager. And generally speaking, Comprehensive Leave Manager is going to provide more robust rules around managing the maximums, carryover limitations. An example of that would be, in some cases they say, well, in a use it or lose it policy, if you lose time, it can transfer to a different balance. And Comprehensive Leave Manager will support that. An additional differentiating benefit is that the Green Shades employee portal that they have has an integration to Comprehensive Leave Manager. So employees that are accessing that portal can see their leave balance coming from Comprehensive Leave Manager. So that's an integration that is in place. Also, if you're using Time Matrix for timekeeping, time clock solution, you can see your Comprehensive Leave Manager balances there as well. So a couple key integrations there that are used by a lot of customers using Dynamics GP Payroll. All right, let's get into a quick demonstration here, and let me switch over, and we'll talk through some key screens on PTO Manager as well as Comprehensive Leave Manager. So let's start with PTO Manager. Okay, so I'm going to open up the PTO setup window. If I just look up the code, just got an example here called full-time employee leave. We've got vacation. You can have a sick time schedule there as well. This is the classic accrual schedule. And if I zoom down on this, okay, didn't zoom, so let me look it up here. Got the vacation schedule. Classic scenario. And prior to our most recent release of Comprehensive Leave Manager, there were a lot of similarities. There were some fair-sized differences as well, but a lot of similarities in the look and use of the accrual schedule window between PTO Manager and Comprehensive Leave Manager. So it was an easy upgrade for customers, easy adoption for anybody that had used it before. But this is a pretty classic setup based on years worked, applying a calculation factor times the number of eligible hours that the employee worked. That eligible hours determined on pay code setup, and then the maximum hours per pay period. So an employee with 0 to 5 years or less than 5 years of service gets 3.08 hours per pay period or 80 hours per year. Then it goes up to 120, 160, and 200. All calculated on the fly, all calculated during payroll processing, all automated. So quick to set up, easy to use. Got the waiting period capabilities, carryover maximum capabilities, and also the anytime maximum as well. So a cap on the balance. When you look at an employee card, you can see that the PTO code is assigned. It's got the vacation schedule, any additional tools there. It's got the available balance showing up, and the next anniversary date, which is handy because that's typically when they're going to go to the next accrual level. Also, if you go to the Go To button, again in PTO Manager, you'll see the PTO detail, which is that transaction history. And I don't have much here for this employee, but you can filter on the year, do some quick filtering. But again, this will show every transaction that impacts that employee balance, and you can print that for the employee if they have questions. In addition, you can also enter that adjustment. So if we need to make an adjustment to the employee balance, something calculated incorrectly or didn't get calculated, they didn't take the time, whatever the situation might be, you can enter that adjustment transaction and choose whether you'd like to have it update the balance, the transaction detail only, or both. And typically, I would assume that you would choose both in that case, so the balance and the transaction history matching up. So that's a quick look at the PTO Manager screens. Cancel that. Also on PTO Manager, just real quick, that balance is stored on the vacation card vacation sick card for the employee. So this is a Dynamics GP core field that gets updated by PTO Manager. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at Comprehensive Leave Manager, and you'll quickly start to see the differences between the two. If I go to Leave Setup for Comprehensive Leave Manager, and I look at the vacation code, and the first thing is that if I do a lookup on the code, you'll see all my codes that I've set up for calculations and demonstrations and customer scenarios and things. I even have the clothing allowance in there that I mentioned earlier. So those are all the different types of codes that you can set up. So what's nice is that it's the code and then the description that fits the plan. So it could be, full-time sick time, a special location sick time or vacation time. If there's a special name for it, professional days, jury duty, whatever that name is, that can be provided and entered so that it's easy for the employee and it's easy for the payroll person to keep track of as well. Just a quick technical note, Comprehensive Leave Manager is an enhancement to payroll as well, so you don't need human resources for Comprehensive Leave Manager. The leave type is the option between accrual, lump sum, and comp time. We stuck with accrual here just because it's typically the most common. The accrual schedule is where we start to see some big differences, and this is a relatively new capability that I talked about a few minutes ago, and you'll see similarities in the fact that we're still using the range, still use years worked in this example, but what you start to see is the ability to start stacking rules. So you might have one accrual schedule that applies for years 0 to 10, or maybe based on hours worked, and then another accrual schedule kicks in. So you can see that I've got the range based on years worked. You can have a secondary range, which might be hours worked. You've got a lot more options here. Hours worked per year, hours worked so far in the calendar year. One of the rules that we have here is also every X hours per calendar year. So that's what we're using for some of the mandated sick time. Every 30 hours, the employee gets 1 hour of time. In addition, you can see the start based on the second row of the in the scrolling window here. Start based on years worked, start or end based on. So you can set rules for you can set multiple ranges, start and stop rules in each one, and then you can also stack the rules on top of each other. So what this enables you as a customer or you as a partner to do is really handle more complex scenarios. We started getting into some scenarios where it was getting difficult to meet the needs, so we've added some capabilities here for you to be able to do that. If you're upgrading to a newer version from a previous version of Comprehensive Leave Manager to this version, it will upgrade all your accrual schedules into this new newly formatted window. So no worries there, it'll take care of that. But now there's a large difference in the accrual capabilities between Comprehensive Leave Manager and PTO Manager. I've got a California sick time rule set up here, which is, again, every X hours, and then just 30 hours, every 30 hours, it's going to give the employee an hour of additional time. So if the employee can technically cross multiple thresholds of that within the same pay period, so they could earn more than 1 hour of sick time each pay period. That's why you see the maximum set to 5. But it's very easy to accommodate those requirements now within Comprehensive Leave Manager. We did a webinar on that a couple of weeks ago, and I've got the links in the slide deck that you can see, and then we'll send you the slide deck as well so you can access those links. Or shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to send those to you. Some additional fields in the leave setup, and we won't go through all these in a lot of detail. Accrual based on effective date. Here's the option to calculate earned time during payroll processing or not, and I'll show you how you do that in the or not scenario. More robust capabilities on the waiting period. You can wait a number of days, number of hours worked, set to a specific date. Again, just generally the ability to handle more complex requirements. The maximum balance option is there, so that's a cap on the balance. Carryover limitations, so no carryover allowed, no carryover limit, carryover on the calendar year, anniversary year, some other date. And then if there is a carryover limit, let's set one up here, then you start to see that you set the maximum, and then you can transfer the excess to a different leave code. So sometimes that rule is there. You also have the option of applying carryover during payroll processing or an outside process, which would be just user initiated. The earned pay codes are, if it's an accrual, the hours that go into the accrual transaction. If it's a lump sum, that doesn't necessarily matter. The take and pay codes are the pay codes that, of course, reduce the balance. So you could have multiple. I think on the PTO code in this environment, I've got, oops, there it is. Here's a sick FMLA code, and there's another window where you designate that as an FMLA pay code. So what that will do is reduce from the PTO balance in this case and also create that FMLA transaction. Okay, once the code's set up, we can go in and do the mass assignment. So you can pick your code, leave code, and then you can just assign it to everybody or assign it by department, position, or employee class. So as you're implementing it, it's a quick way to get those codes assigned. The other way, discard those changes, I've probably got to clear it out first, is to do an employee quick assignment. Okay, so leave quick assignment. So you've got a brand new employee. Now let's pick one down the list that may not have much assigned here. So all we could do here, or all we would need to do is go in and say, well, this new employee gets a clothing allowance, they get jury duty time, personal time, and PTO time. Enter the effective date and hit update or save, and it will assign all those codes to that employee. So again, very quickly being able to do that. The other option, of course, is just to go into the leave card for an employee. So I'll pick Adam Barr, of course, and then you can just manually assign the leave codes. So he's probably already got most of them assigned because we use him for all the demos. But if you pull up the PTO code or the vacation code, you can see you can update some of the information employee specific, just like you'd expect to do in Dynamics GP, make any changes, see some information about his balance, and so on. So we'll come back to this here in just a minute. If you're processing time, or if you're calculating time during payroll processing, there's really nothing to see here. In other scenarios with other types of codes, you might do those accruals outside of payroll processing. So we'll go to transactions, payroll, and I know I'm still navigating the old-fashioned way here using the menus. But if I go into leave transaction, I'm sorry, I want to go to calculate leave accruals. You'll notice that we have a build set up here, similar to a payroll builder. That's a way to think about it. It's already got the codes saved in there because I've already defined that. Calculate leave accruals through, if I hit through a specific date, if I hit calculate, it's going to show me what employees need the accrual. And Comprehensive Leave Manager is smart enough to know that if I do this accrual and I post this through 1/1/2018 and somebody else comes in and tries to do it again, it won't let them do that. And it'll know that, okay, I can do a monthly accrual again on 2/1/18, but I can't do an annual accrual again until 1/1/2019. So all of those safeguards are built into the Comprehensive Leave Manager. And again, when you look at this and when you think about it, it's really geared towards the more complex rules, different types of leave codes, and or larger organizations that are going to have those scenarios, but then the ability to do those mass updates as well. Okay, going back to the employee card, employee leave maintenance, we can also get to an employee leave summary. Okay, so something you don't have with the PTO manager, but again, you only have the two options, so you can see that information on the employee card. But this is going to show every leave code that is assigned to the employee, and over the time frame that is selected, it's going to default to current calendar year, how much time the employee's earned, how much they've taken, any adjustments that have been made, and of course the remaining balance. The pending time is any time that's in a waiting period that the employee doesn't have access to. So this information is available, the earned, taken, and remaining is available to show on the employee pay stub with Comprehensive Leave Manager. That's typically done on a per pay period basis, but these fields can also be pulled out as well, the more annual types of fields. In addition, if we double click, we'll see the transaction history, a little bit more detail here and a few more options for displaying it. For example, the taken from, taken to. If you're doing daily transactions in Dynamics GP, so you put in a transaction for January 22nd, 2015, 8 hours of vacation time, you'll see that specific date in the transaction history. But in general, it's a transaction history much like what we see in PTO Manager. If we go over to create a transaction, we have more capabilities here. We can pick the leave code, of course. You've got more than just vacation and sick time options. Select the PTO code, current balance. The adjustment type is going to be an adjustment, an amount taken, a payout transaction, transfer to a different balance or to a different employee, or both. So if we do a payout transaction, we'll just put in today's date, payout 8 hours, put in a comment, and then you can select a payroll batch. It'll automatically create that payroll transaction in that batch for this employee for the appropriate code. It knows what pay code to use to represent that off of the leave setup window, and then it will update their transaction history for the leave code as well as create the payroll transaction. So just more capabilities there. Just a quick view, if we switch over to Business Portal, just for 2013 and prior, you'll see the leave time capabilities here. The employee view, the employee can log in and see their balances. They can also see their detailed transaction history. So in 2015, what we're doing right away is producing the ability for employees to view their balance in transaction history. In the future, we'll have the manager capability as well as the time off request ability. All right, let's switch back over to the slide deck. Here's the information on the examples of mandated paid sick time. Now, there's others out there, primarily on the East Coast as well. Here are the links that are for that. Don't bother trying to copy it down. I can email it to you, or I'll email you the slide deck. But if you want it specifically, these links, then send me a quick email, and I'll shoot you those links right away. Just real quick, some of our other HR and payroll add-on solutions that we have: mid-pay period rate changes, overtime hours rules, enhanced retirement plans. What's funny, kind of funny, I guess, about enhanced retirement plans is we've gotten a lot of customers in the last couple of weeks that said, oh my gosh, we have a change to our 401k and we can't accommodate the matching calculation. Or we've added the Roth 401k, so we need the combined contribution limit capability, and they're having to implement sort of on a scramble, which isn't fun if you're in that situation. But the good part is that there's a tool that can handle those new requirements if you're facing those. Of course, we talked about Comprehensive Leave Manager. Moving on, Life Insurance Tax Calculator, Employee Email Suite. negative payroll transactions. Quick note on negative payroll transactions related to leave time. If you do a negative payroll transaction for a vacation leave code, it will know where you're storing that balance and add that time back to the employee balance. So if you do a minus 8 hours payroll transaction, if you're using payroll accruals, HR attendance, PTO manager, or comprehensive leave manager, it will credit those 8 hours back to that employee balance. And negative deductions, employee counts and splits, FTE manager, which we primarily just see being used in healthcare, and then our paycheck what if calculator, which is a pretty great tool also. So that's just a quick run through of everything that's there. I'm going to jump ahead one slide and then come back. The reason I mentioned the other products is that we do have a promotion going through the end of February, which is buy two, get one free, or also save on our Payroll Essentials bundle, which includes 3 features: the employee email suite for emailing direct deposit, earning statements, and W-2s, negative payroll transactions, and negative deductions capabilities. So, or any of the other products, or mix and match, buy two, get one free. For more information on Comprehensive Leave Manager or any of the other products, certainly feel free to visit our website, integrity-data.com, because there we do have demo videos, testimonials. Check the ROI for yourself or for your customer to make sure it's a good business decision. Download the products there, knowledge-based articles, and you can sort those by product. And I even use that as I get questions because there's some great stuff out there. And, of course, all the social media things that you can follow us on: Twitter, LinkedIn, and, of course, Facebook. Talked about the promotion. Any questions that are out there? There's my contact information. It looked like most of you on the webinar I know already, but if you don't know me, this is my, I guess, mugshot, we'll call it here. So feel free to give me a contact or shoot me an email if you'd like that sick time information or the mandated sick leave webinar information. Like I said, I'll send that out also. On Twitter, you'll get all things related to Dan Doolin, not just Dynamics GP stuff, but there's a lot of payroll-related things and probably a few other things along the way that might be of interest to you and might not. So follow at your own risk, I guess, is the right thing to say at the end of that sentence. Let me check over here, see if there's any questions. Looks like Giles is asking a question. If the customer has been using PTO Manager in GP and adds your product, will their settings come into Comprehensive Leave Manager? That's a great question. Right now, and I don't know of any plans for this to change, those are, while there are similarities, there are 2 different table structures. So everything would need to be set up and the balance is brought over into the Comprehensive Leave Manager leave codes. So the short answer to that is there's not an upgrade path from PTO Manager to Comprehensive Leave Manager at this point. So that would need to be all set up and reconfigured. But I don't think that would be a very intensive process. That's the only question I'm seeing in the question and answer pane in the webinar. If there's any other questions, please feel free to ask those. I will stay on the line for a few minutes. My email address is there on the screen, so you can always shoot those questions to me. Thanks again for taking the time to join the webinar. I hope this was useful for you to help maybe clarify some of the difference between the 2 products. And certainly if you have any questions about which one might be best for your situation or for your customer situation, please feel free to send those to me. We're always happy to help you resolve those and figure out those things. So one more question from Giles, a follow-up. So if there's history, would you recommend using another code? I'm not sure I understand your question, Giles. I can unmute you if you would I'm going to unmute you, so if you'd like to just talk about it, we can. So I want to go ahead and you can feel free to jump off. I'm going to stop the recording of the webinar, and then Giles and I can also talk about his question. Thanks again for joining, and certainly feel free to follow up with any other questions.